biotechnology drug to market can cost, I understand, upwards of $1.2 billion sometimes. How does the $750,000 maximum Phase 2 award in the SBIR program provide the needed capital for small biotech firms?
It's the spark that allows this to happen. In many cases, if you have a lead program that is funded by a company, by a group of investors, it's very typical that money is allocated solely for that one drug. If I wanted to work on another application of my technology in case of an orphan disease, which aren't that well fundable because of the patient populations, I have to find financing for that. NIH has a list of diseases that they want companies like mine to try to get a spark, try a new discovery. So it's critically important because it allows us to do the initial bench work. It allows us to do the initial proof of concept. It allows us to do the experiments and create the data that we can then convince investors to invest in the next stage of development. I believe, frankly, that without that initial money for sparking these innovations, that many of these diseases will not get the attention that they deserve.
Thank you very much. Dr. Beal, I'll turn to you next if I can. I might just note that we, and I'm sure the chairwoman finds this as well, we are inundated over time by many groups who come to our offices talking to us about various diseases, advocating funding for NIH and others for funding. And I know the cystic fibrosis folks have been in my office many times, and I happened to read a book many years ago by Frank DeFord. I think it was called Alexander, Life of a Child, which was a very moving book that I've never really forgotten, and so I always kind of look with special open mind when they come in to advocate on behalf of the folks that they try to help. So and thank you for your work in that field. My question would be that some firms would argue that small businesses owned by venture firms don't need the capital infusion because to continue their research they can rely on the venture firms for their capital. What would be your viewpoint on that?
Our reaction goes back to the concept they need the spark. That one thing that's happened in the last 10 years is that the window for venture capital has dramatically changed. 10 years ago, if you had an idea, you could get venture capital support. Now, with the disappointments in biotech and the return on the investments, and the fact that 95% fail, that window has moved up. It needs a product, or a product needs to almost be in phase 2 clinical development or phase 3 before venture capital is willing to make its investment. So you have what is frequently called the valley of death. It's that very idea of a proof of concept, phase 1, very early stage issues. And that's where the SBIR program, that's where our venture philanthropy, we are filling in that particular gap. I will tell you that one of our programs that's in phase 3, not the PTC, but it's in phase 2, we had to put in $2 million the first year, but we got enough data that was leveraged eventually by venture capital support that originally went to $120 million, and then the product was just purchased by another major pharmaceutical company for $350 million. But it all started out with that spark, that one investment for us of a couple $1 million just to have the proof of concept. And that's what's so critical. That's what SBIR does, and that's what venture philanthropy is doing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burse, do you think that a venture fund owned by, say, Paul Allen, who's one of the co-founders of Microsoft, should they be allowed to own SBIR awardees? And if not, what would you consider to be the appropriate cap for allowing venture firms to own SBIR awardees?
I don't think it makes sense to exclude, any class of venture-owned or financial investor-owned small businesses, so long as they otherwise meet the program's criteria. most of Mr. Allen's money, I don't want to speak for him, but let's imagine that most of his money is going to be deployed well past the phase where an SBIR would help to initiate something new, that spark that these gentlemen are talking about, or much of his money will be directed toward a particular outcome. I guarantee you, if the entrepreneurs in a firm that he is backing choose to spend that money say, searching for something new that's not on the critical path of the innovation that his fund provided money to them for, he's not going to be happy about it, the board's not going to be happy about it, and they're probably not going to be allowed to spend the money in search of something new. So it's not just the new spark that initiates a new business, but in fact, it's very frequently the critical spark that takes a company down a path that was unexpected, was not in the original plan, for which there was no existing venture capital, though there might be a lot of capital in the company, just can't be spent down this new direction. And it's very often that new direction that actually leads to the breakthrough, which leads to the commercial success.
Thank you very much. General Farrell, you recommend that up to 3% of the SBIR funds should be set aside for managing the program. Would that not reduce the availability of funds for distribution to small businesses to perform research? How would you comment on that?
Yes, sir, you're exactly right. It does reduce the amount of funds which are provided. However, we think at 1% there's a lot of inefficiencies in how the program is being managed, outreach and things like that. We think we could be much more efficient in the way we manage the program with a little bit higher admin fee. I don't think it's unreasonable to go from 1% to 3%. That is an amount of money that would be subtracted, but it's not a large amount of money. But it's essential to the management of the program. So we think that overhead is needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General. And finally, Mr. Bean, some would argue that the government should fund the best research proposals without regard to the size of the entity submitting the proposal. What would your argument be to support setting aside research money to specifically small businesses?
No, when you say small businesses, are you referring to that definition of small business, which is 500 or less, or the really small businesses, which are the 25 to 30 type size or less, which is by far the bulk?
I would say either, whichever way you feel most comfortable to answering the question.
Okay. Well, again, if you look at the Greater Hampton Roads area where we are, there's absolutely no question that this research money that is set aside for investment into the SBIR program has been enormously successful. And there's many cases of companies that have been started up by scientists and researchers coming out of NASA, or local colleges, our own Old Dominion University, Norfolk State, so forth, that have started up companies either by themselves or maybe with one partner, and through the SBIR program have been able to start, as we just said, that spark, and using that spark be able to create the path of both technology and their business process for these companies. And we've seen them grow, from 1, 2 people up to 25, 30, 40. And as the SBIR program continues to invest in them, what allows them to do is to create an initial platform, expand that platform, expand that platform, expand that platform. To give an example, there's one local company that has developed a virtual reality engine primarily on an Army SBIR program. And they've been able to take that development and move it into the community college sector for job training programs, workforce development type projects that are becoming extremely successful. So, there's multiple examples like that. And I think there's, in my mind, certainly no doubt that taking that amount of money that goes in, this very small amount of money, it's 4.3% of total federal investment, or 2.5% in federal research investment that produces something like, 40% of all of the patents that come out of the U.S. So it's just about any way that you look at that, there's a huge benefit to that program.